हेलो एंड वेलकम टू अनदर एपिसोड ऑफ द टेक पॉडकास्ट। सबसे पहले तो आप सबको बहुत ज़्यादा ईद मुबारक। आज के इस एपिसोड में हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं शिराज शाहिद। शिराज इज़ अ सीनियर प्रोडक्ट डिज़ाइनर एट लेट्स लेवल अप, अ यूके बेस्ड कंपनी। इससे पहले ही इज़ बिन लीडिंग द प्रोडक्ट डिज़ाइन टीम एट ब्रिजलिंग्स। आज के इस एपिसोड में हम बात करने वाले हैं शिराज के बैकग्राउंड के बारे में, और हम उनसे पूछेंगे कि पाकिस्तान में रहते हुए यूएक्स और प्रोडक्ट डिज़ाइनर इंटरनेशनल अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ किस तरह से अवेल कर सकते हैं। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट। अस्सलामुअलैकुम शिराज, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर टेकिंग आउट टाइम फॉर दिस पॉडकास्ट। क्या हाल है आपका?
वालेकुम अस्सलाम। मैं बिल्कुल ठीक ठाक। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर इनवाइटिंग मी। मैं काफ़ी सारे एपिसोड्स देख चुका हूँ अभी तक, सो इट हैज़ बीन ग्रेट सो फार, लाइक व्हाट यू हैव बीन
थैंक
डूइंग।
यू।
सो आई थिंक दिस
थैंक यू
वाज
सो
मच
मच।
नीडेड।
अच्छा, शिराज, आई नो कि आपका बैकग्राउंड जो है वो सीएस का रहा है, आपकी डिग्री जो है वो सीएस में है। आप डिज़ाइन में किस तरह से शिफ्ट हुए और क्यों शिफ्ट हुए? आपका इंटरेस्ट कैसे बना डिज़ाइन में? सो लेट्स स्टार्ट देयर।
या सो ऑनेस्टली स्पीकिंग, आई थिंक काफ़ी सारे जो पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त एक्सपीरियंस डिज़ाइनर्स हैं, लाइक हु आर इन लाइक दिस रेंज ऑफ 5 to 6 years of experience, a lot of them are coming from CS background, and I think we
हुँ,
share a same journey, right?
हुँ,
Like एक सीएस की डिग्री जब मैं कर रहा था, आई डिड नॉट हैव द आइडिया कि मतलब यू नो दिस वुड इन्वॉल्व सो मच कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रोग्रामिंग, इसके अंदर ये सारी चीजें होंगी।
हुँ,
क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली करियर काउंसलिंग वाज अ बिग इशू एट द टाइम व्हेन आई वाज
हुँ,
डिसाइडिंग व्हाट टू डू। सो देन आई जस्ट पिक्ड ऑन सीएस एज अ वे कि यार अच्छा शायद गेम्स गेम्स में मुझे बहुत इंटरेस्ट था, सो मे बी आई डू लाइक
हाँ,
गुड ओवर हियर। बट देन आई रियलाइज कि यार game development is a pretty tough thing and it involves a lot of coding. So I guess
बिल्कुल।
during the whole journey, मुझे यही idea हुआ कि I mean it's something which I can not do as a career, but it's something obviously I was learning programming as a coding and all of that. But then during the time, I think university के दरम्यान में there were some uh, things that popped up, which was I was introduced to human computer interaction, and then I was also doing some semester projects which actually involved me dealing with design specifically, and then my
हुँ,
teammates were
हुँ,
specifically just doing the programming. So I think that
हुँ,
also introduced me to this point here. And interestingly, there was this one project just where I was just doing the design of the screens, because obviously at that time it was just limited to the UI part. And then we actually did the presentation at the end. हमारा जो coded app थी wasn't ready. So we just shared the
ओके,
designs on the presentation, and everyone was like, okay, because it was at that point, I mean, I still feel, मतलब अभी if I look back to those design, I'm like, what have I done? But at that time, it was like pretty decent. So,
ओके,
उस वक्त I realized कि, obviously there's a need for this. And we were working with certain, mentors in the university who actually introduced us to this process. Like, पहले आपने design करना है, then you have to code it, and there's one person who is working on the back end and everything. So we were introduced to this concept. So I guess at that time I realized that this is something which I can do. And also, उस वक्त the design culture was sort of like, it was slightly being introduced, specifically product design. We had
हुँ,
Keep Trucking at that time, a few other companies जिनका proper design department बन रहे थे. Avais
हुँ,
Imran, I'm a big fan of him. I'm inspired by him.
हुँ,
So he also
बिल्कुल,
visited NUST at, he was a
ओके,
senior of mine. So,
हुँ,
uske through I got to learn about UX design, particularly. There was a seminar which I joined, and then he also
हुँ,
introduced me to the UX design community that is, very popular on Facebook. So, a lot of things compiled up, and that actually led me to, look for roles, specifically, जैसे ही मैं graduate करूँगा, that could help me evolve my product design, and, मैं specifically process follow कर सकूँ. Because at that time, university में it was all just about, getting some freelance projects, थोड़ी UI बना ली,
हुँ,
mobile app design कर ली and all of that. But there wasn't there wasn't any process or anything. So at that point, it was just that. And then I got lucky
हुँ,
to actually get a job, first job. Surprising thing ये हुई थी कि उसका there was a recruitment drive that was happening.
हुँ,
उसमें obviously it was Technologics, the first company that I worked at. Then
ओके,
they were doing like a recruitment drive. honest, and I actually did not want to join go to that drive because obviously उसमें सारी
Mhm.
programming questions are it's not
Mhm.
my place honestly, but somehow I ended up there. When I attempted a few questions, I just wrote जो क्वेश्चन जो उनका पूरा क्वेश्चन था एंड एवरीथिंग उसमें जो शुरू में जो
Mhm.
डिटेल्स देखते हैं, आई जस्ट रोट के इफ यू हैव एन अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ अराउंड यूएक्स डिजाइन, just hit me up.
Okay.
And surprisingly, after 3 months, like we were still at the end of our graduation, I was reached out by the HR, and I got in as in an internship program where there were like four people, and they were just competing for one job. So that was
Okay.
that was highly competitive, but I got to learn a lot at that point, and then I got the
Mhm.
job, alhamdulillah, and I feel that that actually contributed to a lot of learning at that time because I was working under a design manager,
Mhm.
and it was a great experience because a lot of times I feel कि आजकल जो लोग join कर रहे हैं, if people are joining companies that do not have like a design culture, yeah, if they do not
Mhm.
have any experienced person that they're working for, then that's mostly a
Mhm.
self-learned journey. I mean, that's
बिल्कुल।
great on its own, but
हुँ,
I feel कि for young people, it's really important to work under someone to understand those concepts, see that experience, and then maybe
बिल्कुल।
as you progress along, you can take that self-learning phase, and then also work on your own in a company where there's no
हुँ,
design culture at all. So I think that was
ओके।
like a good start for me, and that was how I actually got into this whole design journey.
टेक्लॉजिक्स में कितना अरसा रहे एंड बिकॉज़ आई मेट यू एट वीओवरआई
Yeah,
तो
yeah,
वीओवरआई तक का जो जर्नी है एंड देन वी कैन लाइक टॉक अबाउट ब्रिजलिंक्स आफ्टर दैट। तो
yeah,
कितना टाइम लगा टेक्लॉजिक्स पे एंड हाउ वाज़
yeah.
द एक्सपीरियंस?
So I feel like I'm lucky enough to work in product companies right from the start. So मैंने किसी service या agency based company में काम नहीं किया. So I've always worked with product companies जहाँ पे पूरा obviously product life cycle follower, and there's one product, and they've been constantly working on it to solve more pain points,
हुँ,
release more
हुँ,
features, and tap into different use cases. So TechLogix was the same. I was working, on this product called AlmusNet, and it was
हुँ,
basically a CMS for universities, where
ओके।
we were basically giving the product to different universities, and tailoring the product according to their needs. And then it was
हुँ, हुँ,
basically just a sales team onboarding the clients, and then we were basically developing all of those needs that they had, different features
हुँ,
for different companies, different universities, and then the product was evolving in that manner. So I think during
हुँ,
those 2 years, I was mostly के मेरी जो learning थी at that time, that was purely around I would say visual and interaction design. So
ओके।
because this was quite a complex product in itself, because
हुँ,
you can imagine that there's finance that is happening, there's
हुँ,
admissions, there's administration, then there's student life cycles, faculty life cycles. So all of it was happening in one product. So it was quite
हुँ,
complex. And so at that time, my main learning was basically around understanding different design patterns, UX
हुँ,
patterns, किस तरह ये implementation होती है, what type of layout should we follow when we are basically resolving complexity, and
हुँ,
design system itself, and then obviously experimenting to actually get to the right interface which we can ship out to the user. So I
हुँ,
think that was my main learning, and I give credit to my manager at that time because he really helped me out, Hamid Raza. He was a
हुँ,
great guy who, like at that time, he had around 8 years of experience. So 5 years
ओके।
of web design development plus design, and then 3 to 4 years of pure product design. So I feel that
हुँ,
I'm lucky enough to actually work under someone like that, and get that guidance specifically in terms of how to take the requirements and then translate them in terms of user flows, screens, and all that had to be shared. But I think
हुँ,
the only thing that motivated me to actually switch from there was that we were basically a company that were getting requirements and just shipping out features. So that was
Mhm.
basically like a feature factory, you could imagine, where,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
were just constantly building, and then there wasn't any user testing happening. Obviously, product was being used, but the roadmap, at that time, I felt that was not influenced by the real problems that needed to be solved. It was just influenced by, different requests coming in from different places, and then a team that
Mhm.
sat down and prioritized it, and then the requirements were shared to us in a very close manner. So we were just,
Mhm.
designing things and then obviously rolling them out. So that actually led me
Mhm.
to move to a different company. At that time, I moved to Seven Wells. That
Okay.
was also like a SaaS company that I worked for. Although
Mhm.
it was like a short stay, I think
Mhm.
7 to 8 months. But I think
Okay.
the main learning from there was I got the exposure to different type of teams that work in a product setting.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
marketing,
Mhm.
data, and then SEO. So all of these teams that actually help the product, grow, help reach them out to the right kind of users. So I think that was
Mhm.
like a main thing that I got from that company, because at TechLogix that was something which I lacked, and I think that also influenced my personality as well, because TechLogix, I was sort of like a lone designer who's working in the corner, rolling
Mhm.
out designs, बस
Mhm.
डिजाइन किया, शिप किया, डेव टीम के साथ कोलैबोरेशन कर ली, जो प्योर प्रोडक्ट टीम है उससे समझ ही रिक्वायरमेंट्स, that was it. But at Seven Wells I got the chance to have more exposure, talk to more people in the team, and then also get the
Mhm.
chance to talk to customers, because that was something new. So, at that time, that was quite an experience for me. And we were also moving towards a phase where that company, Seven Wells, was at that time purely developer, orientated. So developers were reading the product roadmap as well in terms of what
Mhm.
needed to be
Mhm.
developed and all of that. So we were moving towards a phase where there was like a, proper UX centralization in the company. So, I was lucky enough to be
Interesting.
there at that time, and, help conduct several sessions within the company to actually make the company more aware around the UX practices. So I think that was something which
Mhm.
I still feel that I did during my short stay there. And then, obviously, apart from that, working on a few things around the product. So, I mean, that was like a short stay, but I think that उसके बाद जो मेरी ट्रांजिशन हुई टू वीओवराई द नेक्स्ट कंपनी विच वाज बेसिकली
Mhm.
अ वेंचर बिल्डर एट दैट टाइम आई थिंक
Mhm.
जो ऑफर मुझे थी was to work for a design leader, work under a design leader, and I think that really influenced my change. I would have not switched at that time, but I think the offer
Mhm.
itself was really exciting. So at VOVRI, I got the chance to work with Mike Levine, who is a very renowned design UX researcher. He was also former co-founder of Clue, a female health app. So it was something that was exciting. I mean, I had to work on his personal project. It was sort of like a meditation app,
Okay.
and that really was something that was exciting for me, because previously I had only worked on complex systems, B2B.
Mhm.
There was like a dedicated environment in which we had to develop and design and all of that. But यहाँ पे it
Mhm.
was purely a consumer based product that we were trying to take it from 0 to 1, and refining the concept. So interestingly, the I think the point where we were shipping out new user interfaces for users like who are experienced meditators, because there at that time
Mhm.
the space was very much crowded, and it still is, but the apps were
Mhm.
highly focused on meditators who are beginners. So, but there's no
Mhm.
specific app which was for experienced meditators who just need a clutter-free experience. So we were just
Okay.
basically trying to solve for them. So there was a very
Mhm.
and I think while working on that project, I actually got the chance to experiment a lot in terms of different patterns that could be
Mhm.
implemented on the app itself, and then testing them out, and then obviously using all of the knowledge that Mike Levine had, and was also testing my design process, because at that time I actually
Mhm.
had this in mind that there's a particular design process that had to be followed, but
Mhm.
that was being challenged a lot. It's because obviously I was working under someone who has like a ton of experience in shipping on products, and I had like a
Mhm.
limited experience in terms of what design is. Obviously, I had worked on products, but
Mhm.
what was actually happening in terms of consumer apps, that was slightly different. So I think that was like
ओके।
a good enough experience for me working under someone who had such an experience.
जब आप एज़ अ डिज़ाइनर स्टार्ट होते हैं, लाइक मेरे साथ ये हुआ जब मैं वी ओवर आई में था वर्किंग
Yeah,
विद यू। तो
yeah,
मतलब आई स्टिल कहीं भी बात होती है तो आई स्टिल मेंशन के जो हेल्प और जो मेंटोरशिप मुझे शिराज की वजह से मिली इन लर्निंग ऑल द डिफरेंट रिसोर्सेज एंड प्रोसेसेस एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स,
yeah,
जो शायद आपको ऑनलाइन रिसोर्सेज से भी नहीं मिलती। बट लाइक उस
yeah.
पॉइंट पे जो एक बहुत बड़ा मसला होता है फॉर अ बिगनिंग, लाइक फॉर एन अर्ली डिजाइनर, इज के बहुत ओवरवेलमिंग होता है। इतने सारे
Hmm,
कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं, इतने सारे फ्रेमवर्क्स हैं, इतने सारे रिसोर्सेज हैं,
hmm,
कोर्सेज हैं।
yeah,
अब मुझे आज तक याद है कि जब मुझे एप्पल के डिज़ाइन सिस्टम का और क्या कहते हैं मटेरियल डिज़ाइन का पता चला, आई वाज़ लाइक कि अच्छा ये मुझे अब सारा कुछ पढ़ना कैसे है? लाइक पता तो चल गया रिसोर्सेज से।
yeah,
तो
yeah,
हाउ डू यू लाइक ओवरकम ऑल दैट, लाइक इन योर जर्नी, ये जो 2-3 साल
yeah,
की जर्नी रही है? क्योंकि
yeah.
अनलेस आप उस वाले पार्ट से गुज़र जाएँ, आई डोंट थिंक यू कैन रियली एप्रिशिएट और लाइक बेनिफिट फ्रॉम द मेंटोरशिप ऑफ अ सीनियर डिज़ाइनर, क्योंकि आप इतनी
Exactly.
चीज़ों में उलझे हुए होते हैं कि आप
Hmm.
उसका सही फ़ायदा शायद ना उठा पाएँ।
Exactly. I think overwhelming काफी हो जाता है, that I totally agree with. But you just have to like digest it accordingly. Like at that particular point, let's say if I'm working for someone, yeah, if I'm working on a product that has a particular requirement, only
हुँ,
then
हुँ।
I'd be able to actually go ahead and then, read and absorb material around that particular, problem that I'm solving, या कोई particular, design system जो मैंने use करना है, then only I'd be able
हुँ,
to,
हुँ।
get into that zone, understand that and actually
हुँ, हुँ।
implement it. मेरे लिए personally, I feel कि learning does not work in a way कि मतलब I have learned certain things and now I may or may not be able to actually implement it. So the only learning that happens for
हुँ, हुँ।
me, which is really good as well as कि मतलब if something that I've learned right now and I actually get to implement it right away. So that is how I actually
हुँ,
progress
हुँ।
along. So let's say at that point, when I joined V over I was working for a while with the meditation app that I mentioned. So usme we had to purely
हुँ,
just
हुँ।
design, following the Apple interface guidelines. So I mean, previously I had certain
हुँ, हुँ।
experience कि यार अच्छा ये Apple की certain guidelines हैं, then this is material design. But obviously, when you actually get into the implementation mode, when you're actually trying to, implement what you've learned, that is where you actually get to,
हुँ, हुँ।
understand कि यार अच्छा, there's a bit of difference in what you've learned and what you've implemented, and now you actually
हुँ,
reiterate
हुँ।
and then get to the point where you have actually perfected something. So I think to answer
हुँ,
that
बिल्कुल।
question, I would say कि मतलब don't get overwhelmed if someone who is young, who is absorbing a lot of things, just try to take things one at a time. If you're working,
हुँ, हुँ।
prioritize things. I mean, that is what we do at work,
हुँ,
right? Prioritize करते हैं. If it is something, if there are many things that we have to build, we prioritize what we have to build
हुँ,
first. This is something which I do first, and then second and third. So I think prioritization is
हुँ,
the key, like, right? Prioritize what you want to learn and then learn and implement it somewhere. And that is how you actually get to the
ओके।
part where you are now aware and actually can do something around it. Instead of, grasping all of the concepts and then,
हुँ, हुँ।
you know, you do not have like the opportunity to implement it right away, then I feel कि उसमें थोड़ा सा, you lose context and at some point you even lose कि अच्छा what you
हुँ,
learned at
बिल्कुल।
a certain point. So, I mean, that's something which I'd have to say to that.
एक कॉन्सेप्ट जो मैंने आई गेस आपके थ्रू ही मुझे समझ आया या मैंने उसके बारे में पढ़ा, दैट वाज़ पीएलजी, प्रोडक्ट लेड ग्रोथ।
Yeah,
तो
yeah.
प्रोडक्ट लेड ग्रोथ क्या होती है? उसकी नीड क्या है? लाइक व्हाट्स द कॉन्सेप्ट बिहाइंड इट?
So I think obviously like product-led growth is a term that is recently popping up. Like a lot of times I've different podcasts में देख रहा हूँ, it's popping up, and then there's also sales-led growth, and it's specifically for SaaS products में ज़्यादा इस चीज़ के बारे में there's a discussion around it. I think it's just, अगर मैं simplest terms से बात करूं कि what it is कि मतलब, you can imagine a SaaS product, and then if you're coming to the landing page of that product, and
Mhm.
then over there, if you see that there's a book demo option instead of a sign
Mhm.
up, that means, you're not doing PLG. So, you're not basically
Okay.
taking the user through a self-serve journey where someone who comes in to the product, they sign up, they go through the onboarding process if there is any, and then they get
Mhm.
to the aha moment. I mean, if that is implemented correctly. So,
Mhm.
for them to actually experience the product themselves, and
Mhm.
then, solve their need, whatever they want through the product, I think that's purely PLG. Now,
Okay.
in the case where, jahan pe there's a managed system where, there's salespeople, there's customer reps who actually then onboard someone and then bring them to the product, help them with the implementation. I think that's purely a mixture of, उसमें फिर थोड़ा सा sales led भी angle आ जाता है. And I think
Mhm.
that's particularly the difference between these two. Now, based on my learning of so far, and some of the things that I'm implementing in the current company that I'm working is, okay, we
Mhm.
have been purely sales led, but we are moving towards the phases, okay, where we give the opportunity to users to just sign up to the product, and then we see how
Mhm.
they go about their journey. We collect
Okay.
data through onboarding, we tailor their experience accordingly in the product itself, and then solve for their particular use case, and then give them the right experience within the app. I think that's purely PLG, based out of the limited implementation that I've done up until now.
Mhm.
So, this is something that I've learned around this part.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about Bridgelinks now. You became the lead product designer at Bridgelinks, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how was that experience? And like working on such a big, I guess we can call it startup or maybe like it was still in the startup phase, but like how was that experience?
Yeah, I think Bridgelings was like a pivotal experience for me because I joined a company which was at that time, जब VOVRI से I moved to Bridgelings.
Hmm.
Bridgelings was sort of like a client of VOVRI at the time when we were, working for them. So, but then soon they realized, okay, we need to have this team in house and move them to Bridgelings. So that is how the
Hmm.
transition happened for me as well. So I moved from VOVRI to Bridgelings. And at that point, I was like, one of the top 10 employees there. We were only just a team of 10 people. And then
Hmm.
experiencing the growth of the company as we progressed along. In like 2.5 years, we moved from, 10 people to like 150. And then obviously
Hmm.
that the count was reduced as well. But obviously, experiencing that journey was something which I still feel has been pivotal for me, because उसमें ये है ना कि earlier stage where you're moving from 0 to 1, and then you see the funding happening, the company raised the largest seed round at
Hmm.
that time. So, and then there's a cash influx that is happening, and then that is influencing growth for the company, and then
Hmm.
how that has impacted design and our
Hmm.
product development process. I think that was a great learning for me so far.
अच्छा, ब्रिजलिंक्स के ऊपर आपने तकरीबन 2.5 साल काम किया, राइट? Like
Yeah,
that's a long time to work on a single product, especially given
yeah.
like कि local context के अंदर I think that was like one of the first companies that was trying to solve this problem जो कि freight से related था. Uh,
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you talk a bit about that?
या आई थिंक एट द स्टार्ट, जब हमने बेसिकली जब कंपनी बिल्कुल स्टार्ट में थी, उसमें वी हैड अ बिट ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ व्हाट द प्रोसेस इज, के बिकॉज इट्स क्वाइट कॉम्प्लेक्स, लाइक फ्रेट process is complex in itself. Like, even
Hmm.
if you talk about the process in Pakistan, shipments coming to the port, and then port say the shipment then moving to cities around Pakistan, and then उसमें ports पे क्या operations होते हैं, all
Hmm.
resolving for those, and then solving all of the problems that happen around movement of a certain good from one place to another. There's
Hmm.
quite a complex process that is being followed within this ecosystem. So for us
Hmm.
to actually convert that into product, that I think that was like the toughest challenge in itself.
Okay.
I think at the
Hmm.
start, हमने थोड़ा सा, there was this decision to actually make external facing products for like shippers and carriers, but then
Mhm.
we did not have the whole hold on what was happening inside. So what was because we were basically a managed marketplace, so हम बीच में
Mhm.
होते थे, and then there was a shipper, and then there was a carrier, and then we were managing all of the operations. So that was
Mhm.
purely the concept of Bridgings. But
Okay.
at the start, we basically started to develop external facing products. So a shipper could
Mhm.
place an order through their specific product, and then shipper, the carrier would receive that order, and then they could respond to it, and then go about attempting to complete the whole shipment. But I think the learning at that point was that we needed to have full hold on what's happening internally, because
Mhm.
that was the crucial data set that had to be shared with the external users before we
Mhm.
attempt to actually solve for the external users. So I think a lot
Okay.
of product development that happened earlier on, I think for like 1.5 year, was me just building internal products, and I think
Okay.
that was purely, at that point I was just working alone, so there was no design team in itself. So it was purely
Okay.
just me founding Product Designer at Bridgings, and then translating all of these internal processes into product with the help of obviously
Okay.
other various teams within the company. So
Mhm.
product design itself, so we did not have like product managers, but it
Mhm.
was just that product design itself was a bridge between operational teams and the tech team. So
All right.
my
Okay.
role was to just understand all of those processes, make some sort of MVP, and then ship that out, and then gain more understanding to then build a refined internal product. So then that was like that was for me a great learning when it comes to building
Mhm.
internal products.
Mhm.
But when it comes to solving for local audience, because a certain point, but then we had complete hold of internal data that had to be shared with the
Mhm.
external users. So at
Yeah.
that time, then we also decided to work for our external user base like carriers and shippers. So I think usme there was a big challenge that was specifically जो हमारी supplier या carrier side है, that was around
Mhm.
adoption of our product, because you can
Okay.
imagine that these people are non-tech savvy, like they are hardly using these digital smartphones. अगर आप
Mhm.
कराची में जाओ, इनकी जो एक specific career marketplace है, you observe them that all of these people are huddling up, and they're just sitting at one place, and they're just
Mhm.
communicating with each other, and that is how
Mhm.
they fulfill all of these orders. That yeah,
बिल्कुल.
they just have like a मुझे एक button वाला phone नहीं होता, they have
हाँ.
that, they're constantly receiving calls and then fulfilling all of the orders that they get. Now, for us to
Okay.
move towards a place where we introduce an application into this ecosystem, I think
Mhm.
that was like the toughest part.
Mhm.
Now, there are certain other motivations that we had to solve for in order for them to actually use the product. So,
Mhm.
अगर आपकी ऐप का user experience कितना भी अच्छा हो, but if the user is not getting the payment on time, that they did not have the motivation to use the app. So I think there were
बिल्कुल.
certain other pain points that we discovered when we shipped out our first version of the app. Um,
Mhm.
Specifically, अगर design की बात करें, the biggest learning for me was that for these local users who are not used to exploring complex apps, or all of these
Mhm.
interfaces. Be- for me, I had to then move from a conventional design implementation to a more personalized design implementation for these users. So, a simple example was कि एक हमारी एक screen थी which had a lot of orders, and then users
Mhm.
could actually just filter down to actually get to a particular order. So they could apply filters, see their particular order, and then fulfill it. Now, obviously, that wasn't as intuitive for those users, because for then they'd have to use their own brain, apply those filters, and then get to that particular order that they have to fulfill.
Mhm.
So then that was something which I learned from usability testing at that time. I mean, even although that reduced the number of interactions that user had to go through, I still had to present them data in a way that they get to the actual order in a very linear manner, although it may involve a certain number of extra taps, certain number of extra
Mhm.
clicks, but they would eventually get to the end without any problem. So, we were
Mhm.
heavily inspired by these people using WhatsApp as a means to actually communicate with each other.
Mhm.
And we then followed a sort of like a conversational interface specifically for our carriers, where they would just receive all of these orders in sort of like a message bubble, where they can just see it like a single string of text and then see all of that information, then just simply press a button to actually add all of the relevant details, like vehicle details and all of that. So
Mhm.
based on then user testing, we realized that this was something which worked at that time. And I think for me that was a good learning to understand that sometimes you have to step out of that conventional design implementation, and then particularly understand how this user how this person actually works, and then how you can tailor the experience for them.
Bridgelings के बाद you shifted to your current position, your current job, which is a UK based company, Let's Level Up, right? So
Yeah.
uh, my main question here is, how did you go about, especially in the current job scenario and current market, आपने किस तरह से apply किया and how did you target that international job?
So yeah, I think honestly speaking, it was a really tough process, to be honest. Like, it took around uh, several months to be to get to the point where I just secured a role that was foreign, that was remote. I was working for a company that is based in UK, so Let's Level Up.
Mhm.
Uh, I think इसमें the point was that at some point when I was in Bridgings, I realized that we've developed good enough process for the team to run itself. So
Mhm.
I led a product design team there as well. So there was designers who were working with me. So at
Mhm.
some point I realized that I needed new challenge. At that point I was like, I'll just look for foreign remote roles, because obviously that
Mhm.
helps with the inflation as well, in terms of purely tax-free income. And then obviously you're
Mhm.
getting foreign remittance, and that really helps
Mhm.
as well. But obviously,
बिल्कुल.
to get to the part where you actually secure it, I think that has been really humbling. I've actually learned a lot in this whole process, because
Because
I
हाँ,
sorry.
सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट यू, मैं सिर्फ ये कह रहा था कि क्योंकि डेव की तो बहुत जॉब्स हैं, लाइक डेव के अंदर यू
Yeah.
यू हेयर अबाउट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल जिन्होंने रिमोट जॉब्स की हुई हैं इंटरनेशनल, whether they're based
Yeah.
out of Europe or US. Like within design, it's very rarely that you hear about people who are doing remote jobs while like being in Pakistan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think yes. इसमें ये है कि it's all about just being persistent, and
Mm-hmm.
then finding the right platforms, and then using the right mediums to actually just tailor your profile and then apply. I think that has been the main learning for me. Like,
Okay.
मैंने क्योंकि काउंटलेस जगहों पे अप्लाई किया है. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I did receive rejections. I also got accepted into a certain company. There was number of companies that I got the offer at the end, but then that wasn't actually resonating with me in a way that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to solve that problem. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the whole process then actually led me to understand that you have to tailor your profile in a way that whenever you're applying to a company, you're not just applying for the sake of applying. You're actually tailoring your profile in a way that actually gets the attention of that hiring manager or recruiter on
Mm-hmm.
in that particular company. So I think इस
Okay.
पूरे process में जो I've used a lot of different job sites, different platforms
Mm-hmm.
जहाँ पे ये all jobs सारी नजर आती हैं, जो भी यूके रिमोट या यूएस रिमोट या वर्ल्ड वाइड रिमोट. So I use a lot of them. So there was this one website which I used to secure this current job, this which was called
Mm-hmm.
ota.com. So
Okay.
वहाँ पे आपका सारे job boards हैं around design, and then you can complete your profile and then apply. And then
Mm-hmm.
also there were a lot of other techniques that I applied, which cold DMs. I think that is like a good one. uh,
Okay.
People say that you have to do it like a lot of people say it, but I think uski agar right implementation ho, that actually gets more results. So what I used to do
Mhm.
was that, for me, video has really worked a lot. Like I would just make a quick yeah, Loom Pay or Veed Pay. I would just make like a 1 minute video and just send
All
it,
right.
and then track the response of it. So I think whenever I shared a video with someone, I received a
Mhm.
positive response, and I think that actually helped
ओह!
start the conversation. So for me, that was
अच्छा।
a really cool thing. जो मेरी जो current जो
हुँ, हुँ।
company यहाँ पे भी I actually shared the video, so like a 1 minute video as to why I would be the best fit for them. And then there was another video which I shared around one case study, uh, which obviously was from Bridgings, but it wasn't a perfect match in terms of, because these are two entirely different industries. But the
हुँ, हुँ।
complexity and the nature of the case study, I tailored it in a way that would, make the other person understand what my work is and how I can contribute for that particular company. So I think
ओके।
video is for me a very effective mechanism. And then portfolio, I think the main thing that we can talk about is portfolio. Like having the right portfolio is the key to getting a remote job, because Pakistan, we are still at a stage where there's a good enough design work that you can do, and then you can map it out to a design process and then share that, and then
हुँ, हुँ।
you will have a lot of success around it. But when it comes
हुँ, हुँ।
to applying for remote roles, a lot has changed around how people actually see portfolios, how they
हुँ,
digest
हुँ।
them, because
ओके।
just imagine ke, there are a certain number of people that are applying to a one role.
हुँ,
Now,
हुँ।
if someone is following a template design process and then translating that for their particular case study, that would not work. You need to actually
हुँ,
implement those storytelling techniques to actually tell the story of a case study, instead of just
हुँ,
telling कि अच्छा, I did research, I did wireframes and design, and maybe a bit of user testing.
हुँ।
I think based, क्योंकि अब रिमोट की तरफ ज़्यादा रुझान है, people are trying to get remote jobs.
बिल्कुल।
The hiring managers, they actually have more power right now, so they have a lot of
हुँ,
the applications that they have to review. So there's like a supply demand वाला जो है ना एक shift आया है. So then they actually prioritize कि अच्छा अब ये इतनी सारी options हैं, which one should I pick? I think
हुँ,
that
हुँ।
is where storytelling can actually help you get to get to the top, where you can use those techniques to actually uh, give out a better idea to the other person कि यार, why am I the best fit for you?
ओके।
And that has mainly worked for me well.
सो विजुअल वर्सेस प्रोसेस वाली जो चीज़ है, कितना एक पोर्टफोलियो जो है वो कितना विजुअल होना चाहिए? क्योंकि फॉर अर्ली स्टेज डिज़ाइनर्स बिहेंस इज़ यूजुअली द गो टू साइट कि आप अच्छा बिहेंस है, उसके ऊपर आप विजुअल्स डालो, थोड़ा-सा प्रोसेस एक्सप्लेन करो तो जो पोर्टफोलियो इज़ रेडी। अ, हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट इज़ दैट? एंड लाइक अगर विजुअल्स इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है तो फिर आप अपनी कैसे आप अपने पोर्टफोलियो में लाइक व्हाट डू यू हैव टू शो इन योर पोर्टफोलियो?
So मैं इसको आंसर करूंगा कि you need to have a different set of portfolio, uh, you know जिसकी बेस पे आप अप्लाई कर रहे हैं. सो लेट्स से मैंने जो इस पूरे प्रोसेस में जो मेरी लर्निंग है वो ये है कि यू नीड टू हैव लाइक थ्री काइंड ऑफ पोर्टफोलियोज दैट यू कैन
ओके।
यूज टू एक्चुअली apply and get some responses. So one is
हुँ, हुँ।
obviously your online portfolio, which anyone can visit at any time. You don't have to actually share it with someone. You can just put a link on your LinkedIn profile or
हुँ, हुँ।
at any other place, and then that just stays live, and anyone can come into that portfolio. They can see your work, and then understand who you are. Now I think that particular portfolio is useful in order to get the attention of someone.
हुँ, हुँ।
Over there, I think it's purely mostly just talking about the impact of the work that you have had in a certain company. So let's say if I've worked at Bridgings, what impact I had, and that had to be purely in terms of what sort of shift I made, in terms of अगर एक डिप्स मैंने एक प्रोजेक्ट पे काम किया है, how that actually helped the company in moving from let's say X to Y, in terms of numbers, in terms of activation, in terms of retention. There are certain metrics that you can actually share on that part. and then you
हुँ,
specifically highlight some of the design work that you did in that company. So you can see, you can imagine this as a movie trailer which you can show to
ओके,
someone to actually engage them, and then
हुँ,
get their attention. So I think that's the
ऑलराइट,
first part. The next part is basically like, again, if you are engaged now with someone from the team, just jahan bhi aap apply kar rahe hain. So there's like a recruiter and then there's a hiring manager. So
हुँ, हुँ,
obviously मेरी काफ़ी learnings रही हैं around this part कि there are different hiring processes and they vary
हुँ,
across
हुँ,
different companies. So
हुँ,
but usually the pattern that I've observed is that there is a recruiter that does the interview at the start, which is like an intro call, and then you move
ओके,
towards other processes, which is like a portfolio review, or they could be hiring managers who just see your case studies. You have to present all of them, and then
हुँ,
there are
हुँ,
design assessments and all of that. But usually you have an intro call and then you move towards a portfolio case study presentation. That is something which I've
ओके,
observed a lot, and I think there is this like a template process that is being followed. So us case
हुँ,
may
हुँ,
be you need to have. So the first thing that we talked about was the highlight itself, that is purely
हुँ,
somewhat a balance of text and then also visual. So over there you're
हुँ, हुँ,
basically just talking about your impact in a high level impact in the company, and they're
हुँ,
just
हुँ,
highlighting the number of projects that you've worked on, but then more on the visual manner. So just also highlighting the key design deliverables that you had, and then just highlighting them in a very visual manner. But then when you also get to the intro part, where you're talking to
हुँ,
the
हुँ,
recruiter, I think that is also very I would say important, because
ओके,
based on my learning, क्योंकि कुछ जगहों पे मुझे रिजेक्शन आई है एट द स्टार्ट, कुछ जगहों में मुझे एंड पे रिजेक्शन आई है. सो व्हाट आई हैव लर्नड इज के यू हैव टू ट्रीट द इंट्रो call seriously as well, where you are just doing like a slide short presentation of your
हुँ, हुँ,
overall work impact, and then also the highlights of your work. So then it
ऑलराइट,
purely becomes a presentation which you are actually sharing with someone, and you're just
हुँ, हुँ,
using the visuals to actually support what you are saying. So you have a script that you
ओके,
have created, and then you have some visuals on screen that you're actually then going through. So that does not have to be a lot of text. It has to be
हुँ, हुँ,
a good balance of visuals and text, but then you
हुँ, हुँ,
have to basically follow a story and not a template process
सही,
that you are actually sharing with someone. So
हुँ,
I
हुँ,
think that's
ऑलराइट,
purely like my learning so far. And then obviously then you need to have one other presentation deck as well, which you're using for your portfolio presentation, which is like a
हुँ,
detailed
हुँ,
case study walkthrough. And usme bhi, it's good to actually highlight the impact at all times, because a lot of these companies are now moving towards a phase where they want designers who can actually share the impact of their work, instead of just taking us through the case study, the process, the design
ओके,
deliverables.
ओके,
So they want to understand that what impact they had on the business itself,
हुँ, हुँ,
and what the impact was created by the designer throughout the journey that they state at
राइट।
that particular company. So I think
अच्छा तो
ये थोड़ा सा इसमें learning रही है कि you have to have like these three portfolio blocks to actually go about this whole process.
ऑलराइट, तो नंबर ऑफ केस स्टडीज़ से फ़र्क पड़ता है कि आप कितने इंक्लूड कर रहे हैं या अगर आपकी एक भी है और वो सॉलिड है और वो उस फॉर्मेट पे है दैट यू जस्ट टॉक्ड अबाउट कि जिसमें आप इम्पैक्ट भी बता रहे हैं, जिसमें वो स्टोरी वाला फॉर्मेट भी है एंड यू आर एबल टू कन्वे व्हाट यू हैव डन, आप अपना इम्पैक्ट बता सकते
Yeah.
हैं। तो डज़ लाइक वन केस स्टडी लाइक इज़ दैट इनफ या फिर देयर इज़ अ मिनिमम लिमिट ऑफ केस स्टडीज़ के इतनी इंक्लूडेड हों देन इट्स गोइंग टू मेक एन इम्पैक्ट?
So I think जो the online portfolio that is live anywhere, let's say वो जो मैंने पहले बात की है कि
हुँ, हुँ,
जो आपने LinkedIn पे लगाई हुई है या कहीं भी शेयर की हुई है, anyone can visit that. I think उसमें you can have a number of case studies, like but
ओके,
you could put them under the umbrella of the company that you've worked at. So
हुँ,
let's say
हुँ,
if I've worked at Bridgings, I can just say I helped the company move from this stage to this, and then
हुँ, हुँ,
under this umbrella I've worked on these number of projects.
हुँ,
Usme you can have a number of case studies, but when it comes to portfolio presentation itself, when you are actually sharing with the recruiter, yeah, with the design, with the hiring manager on call, and you're taking them through the case study itself. I think the number there is probably just two or three to just show the
Mhm.
variation of work that you have done. For me, I have just used three case studies to just show the different type of projects, the different type of case studies that I've worked on. So, but
Mhm.
I think that also depends. कि उसमें भी you can tailor for the job that you're actually applying for. So let's say
All
if
right.
you're applying for a B2B company, so for them
Mhm.
you can just tailor your case studies in a way that you're only showing them B2B complex case studies that are that they resonate with more, instead
Mhm.
of just,
Mhm.
अगर मैं उनको ट्रेबल की केस स्टडी दिखा दूंगा, I mean that could work, that could show them my whole process, but obviously they'd not be able to resonate it with more. So
Mhm.
I think the main learning here is you can tailor your case studies accordingly for the company that you're applying for, and I think the good
All
number
right.
is probably around two to three when you're actually sharing that with someone on call.
All right. Perfect. और पर्सनल वेबसाइट होना कितना ज़रूरी है?
Yeah, I think for someone who is starting, uh, I would say it's fine to have a personal website. I mean, anyone can come in and look at that. But
Mhm.
I still feel, I mean, I do not have a personal website at this point. So,
All right.
but whatever I have achieved so far, I have been able to share my work in like a
Mhm.
closed environment. So I would
Mhm.
share my PDF links, yeah, presentation links. So मेरी जो presentation है, portfolio presentation, I have hosted that on Figma. I mean, I just use the link
Okay.
and then just put the password and share it with someone. I think the
Exactly.
personal website, it works in a way that if you get to a certain point where then your work is live and then people could come in and see it. I think that's
Mhm.
much more efficient. I would still, obviously, I still want to have that personal website, but
Mhm.
haven't had the chance to actually implement it. उसमें थोड़ा सा time की limitations की वजह से. But I think that shouldn't limit you. You can have a closed setup in which you can just share your personalized
Mhm.
portfolio with someone. I think that's
Okay.
more efficient in a way that
Mhm.
you can get the attention of a recruiter, yeah, hiring manager in a more
Mhm.
personalized way, as opposed to the live website link जहाँ पे
Mhm.
then you have like a high level thing. um, I would still advise it, but I think it just serves a different purpose. That's
Okay.
purely
Okay.
for getting the attention of someone.
Mhm. Mhm.
It would be
Makes
really
sense.
helpful for someone who is a bit experienced, who has a certain projects under them. Uh,
बिल्कुल.
but I think in terms of personalizing your portfolio, I think it's much more efficient in a closed environment.
ऑल्सो राइट नाउ मेरे ख्याल से जिस तरह नोशन है या फिग्मा है लाइक द एबिलिटी टू
Yeah,
लाइक to share your portfolio and to be able to like make your portfolio very easily. Notion पे बहुत सारे लोगों के मैंने देखे हैं बहुत well documented
exactly.
portfolios on Notion. इसी
Yeah,
तरह से similarly on Figma, even like
yeah,
on I saw a portfolio on Google Docs पे किसी ने बनाया हुआ था and it was like very very good. Like
yeah,
I wasn't
yeah,
expecting it to be like really good, but like even Google Docs के ऊपर you can
yeah.
achieve that. I think that makes sense.
सो मीडियम इज आई थिंक उसमें मैं यही कमेंट करूंगा कि मीडियम जो भी आप यूज करें, just use it effectively, just
Mhm.
tell the right story.
Mhm.
So I've used Notion earlier. Usme, I just felt that Notion pe there was a limitation around how you can actually structure your case studies when it comes to
Mhm.
showing the visual bits. In
Mhm.
Figma, that worked well for me because usme bas ek presentation mode, I can just move things around myself and then present in a much efficient manner and share in a much efficient manner. So I think that's
Mhm.
purely my learning on this part.
Okay. Okay. So any other resources जो job hunting से और targeting international jobs related to that that you'd like to share?
So I think इसमें जो the job hunt in itself is a bit tiring when it comes to specifically looking for remote jobs based. अगर आप पाकिस्तान में बैठ के if you're looking for a job based in UK or US, I think that's you just have to understand that it will take some time. I mean,
हुँ,
Obviously, isme you have to get lucky as well. But I think luck for me is when you're prepared enough and then you get the right
हुँ,
opportunity. So I
हुँ,
think that's luck for me. So I think you just have to first prepare your materials. So having that good enough portfolio structured, that you can present to someone, that you can
हुँ,
share with someone, and then also keeping track of where you're applying and then seeing where you're at the process, then using that understanding to then tailor your further applications. And
हुँ,
then also, like isme, let's say even if you're facing some rejection, don't just treat it usme don't just go into that phase ke, okay, I've got the rejection, isme kya masla hoga,
हुँ,
मसला हो गया बहुत ज्यादा है, अब ये इशू बन गया है. Use that as a learning and then just keep applying. And then eventually, if you use the learnings that you have had around the rejections, ask for feedback.
हुँ,
Some people are kind enough to give feedback. I mean, some do not, but जो भी
हुँ,
feedback, if you get some feedback, use that to actually then improve your portfolio or your applying process, and then get to the end. आई थिंक इसमें जो एक और चीज़ जो मेरे लिए काफ़ी इफेक्टिव रही थी वो ये था कि डिफरेंट जॉब बोर्ड्स हैं, लाइक we work remotely, work in startups, ota.com. So I used to go there daily. I used to scan them,
हुँ,
and then for me, so contrary to what people say is that because remote job pe, there are a lot of people who are applying. So and
हुँ,
there is a certain time period in which you apply. A lot of people say that
हुँ,
you should apply once the job has been up for like a week or 2 weeks, because then people start to actually review the applications.
हुँ,
Based on my data, what I've observed over the whole process is that if you're an early applicant, that actually got me more responses as opposed to me applying
ओह!
later down the timeline. So I think
ओके,
that has been an interesting insight. And then also, like, just set up those email digests, so anytime a new opportunity pops up, you get the email right away. I think that's something
हुँ,
which I did as well. So I would receive those emails so anytime a new job was posted on the different job boards that I subscribe to. So I would just immediately open it up and then see if this resonates with me, and then I would tailor the portfolio for them accordingly and send my intro to them, and then apply. So I think that works. And then, as previously I highlighted, ke video, I think people don't realize, but
हुँ,
there's a real power in sharing video format, intros. I think that if my top advice would be to someone is, okay, just use video as a medium to actually capture the attention of someone. I think
हुँ.
that's like the best part around this whole process.
लेट्स मूव टू क्विक क्वेश्चंस देन इस
Yeah,
पॉइंट
yeah,
पे
sure.
व्हाट आई यूजुअली आस्क इज के व्हाट इज योर फेवरेट बुक about design, or could be any other book basically, but any
Yeah.
one book that you'd like to recommend to other people.
Yeah, honestly speaking, I do not read a lot of books, so I
Okay.
honestly digest information in much more visual manner. So
Mhm,
maybe like watching a podcast, yeah, a particular YouTube video to understand, what they're saying, and then digest that information, and then use
mhm,
that. So not a big book reader, but the few books that I've read, उसमें से there was this one book called Steal Like an Artist. I really liked that.
mhm.
It shows you to how actually go about the whole creative journey, and then
Yeah.
be clever about what you implement and how you go about solving things.
Mhm,
I think that was a good one for me. And then
yeah.
recently I also read Rework, which was
Okay.
by the founder of Basecamp. So but that
Mhm,
was purely around how to achieve maximum efficiency at work, how to set up processes, because right now I'm in a phase where I am working as a designer, but then I also have to lead the product, set up the roadmaps, manage teams
mhm,
within the company. So I think for
mhm,
me that book was a great help, because it helped me understand how to structure things, how to go about meetings, how to improve efficiency within the company, how to actually improve the product process. So I think I would really recommend that. So
Okay.
these are the two books. Baki uske alawa to I've read a few other books as well, like वो Don Norman की जो थी एक design of everyday
Mhm.
things. उसके
Mhm.
अलावा there are a few others as well. I don't remember the name. About Face, and then there was one around
Hmm.
information architecture. So I think
Okay.
ये थोड़ी सी हैं, although इसमें से ये है कि I would not lie here कि I haven't completed all of them, but obviously I've read uh, till a certain point, and
No,
used
I
some
think
learnings from those books as well.
that's a common challenge for all designers.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
अच्छा, तो मीडिया वाइज पॉडकास्ट could be podcast, any like YouTube videos or any documentaries that you'd like to recommend.
So media wise, I listen to Lenny's podcast a lot. So I
Yeah.
think that's like a good one for me
Mhm.
to actually see, because usme then there are a lot of other conversations as well. Na? It's not just about design; it's about
बिल्कुल.
understanding the product ecosystem. So it's about understanding how different product companies implement different
Mhm.
frameworks, strategies to actually make their process more efficient. I think for me, Lenny's podcast is like the best resource right now. Even
बिल्कुल.
like if you want to evolve yourself as a designer, because
Hmm.
design as a product designer, we're not just limited to the design process. Let's say
Hmm.
even if you're working for a early stage startup, you then have influence on a lot of other things that are in the company.
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
for me that podcast really helped me. Then I can use those frameworks that are explained. उसमें अब
बिल्कुल.
जैसे a recent one I saw was how to take the company and use PLG to actually improve the whole product journey, and then how to
Hmm.
manage sales led and PLG,
Hmm.
and then go about. And then there was another one where I saw that Brian Chesky की podcast जो था
Hmm.
जिसमें
बिल्कुल.
Airbnb की सारी story, and आई थिंक दैट्स क्वाइट फेमस एज वेल, जो आजकल वो उसमें काफ़ी सारे लोग शेयर भी कर रहे हैं वो. सो आई थिंक
बिल्कुल.
फॉर मी दैट्स लाइक द गो टू रिसोर्स अगर हम
All
विजुअल की बात करें मीडिया के उसमें.
okay. Okay. Who's your favorite designer, or what's your favorite design company? Could be a product
um
company as well.
yeah, so I think favorite designer, I do have a lot of inspirations there. But I think there was this one particular person who I was following a lot on Twitter. And then even when I was working at Treble, I was following that designer. So his name is Alex Cornell. He's currently
Okay.
working at Meta. But at
Mhm.
that time, he was working on Cocoon, which was, a app for family members to actually talk to each other in a very close setting. So it was
Okay.
quite interesting
Mhm.
concept at that time. So what's unique about him is कि एक तो उसकी जो how he goes about implementing and the design, and then creating unique interface patterns. I think that is
Mhm.
something which I really liked about him. So I even used the app when I was researching at that time for Treble. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it was amazing to see how actually differentiated design patterns there.
Mhm.
And then he used to share the whole learning on Twitter. I think
Mhm.
that was great. And then he moved to Linear, which is like a really popular tool that a lot of companies are using right now. Linear
Mhm.
is basically for development and design lifecycle management. So
Okay.
I really like his work. And one of the cool things that
Mhm.
I saw when I was following him, I still follow him, is that, whenever he designs something for the company, he does like a proper presentation and like a showcase of it within the company by making a cool video around that feature. I
Okay.
think that was really exciting to see that matlab, someone is taking the time to actually create visibility of what they have done in
Mhm.
a very unique manner. So I think for me, Alex Cornell is something which is someone who I am really inspired by.
Okay, interesting. I'll check him out. So I
Yeah.
think that's it for today. Thank you for sharing so many insights, Shiraz. बहुत मजा आया इस conversation का. So inshallah, we'll continue this conversation in another episode in the future. Take care.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you so much for having me, Raza. And it's great. Like all of these conversations are much needed in Pakistan because
Mhm.
you are bringing in people who have a certain number of experience in the industry, and then getting their insights. And I'm learning a lot from your podcast. So thank you so much for having me. Although I feel that I have still a lot to learn, but it was great to share my knowledge with you.
Thank you so much. Take care, Shiraz. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye.